So hello everyone, and in Medicine and Biomedical Research. My name is Audrey Lee, and I'm an incoming MBPC student at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. So I'm at the intersection of both research and medicine, and I will be your moderator for this session. So I would like to invite our panelists, Brandon, Alice, and Min, to please introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, my name is Brandon, and I'm also a recent graduate of Columbia who studied biomedical engineering, and I will be taking the next 2 years to do research at the Broad Institute before applying to MD PhD programs.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay. My name is Alice Furman. I'm currently in the process of graduating from the MCC, and I will be transferring to CCNY to continue my bachelor's in science.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am currently a research technician at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. I just graduated from Smith College with a major in neuroscience, and I will also be taking 2 to 3 gap years before I apply for MD PhD programs.
Great, so thank you. And with that, let's move on to our first question. So what inspired you guys or continues to motivate you to pursue a career in medicine? In other words, how did you decide on this career path?
For me personally, I did a lot of community service in high school, and on a trip to Haiti, I realized that there's just a lot of communities way worse off than my own, and I just want to be able to help communities that do look like me, even if it's a small change, just myself.
For me, I think the reason is sort of twofold. Well, one, so I want to go into medicine to become a physician scientist to, I guess, tackle the field of oncology, just because most of my family has been afflicted of cancer. As you all know, it's a very fatal disease, especially in the United States. But the other reason is also from my volunteering experience. I've actually had the chance to interact with many different types of patients, and in one setting, I actually observed that there seems to be like a gap in attention between physician and patients on the basis of language, and specifically, like I observed that with Spanish-speaking patients, right? They won't get as much attention as like other patients that can clearly speak with a physician in English, as normal. And that's something that I observed when I was volunteering at a hospital. And me being bilingual, I was raised in the Dominican Republic for some time. I feel like that's a gap and a void that I could fill, and I want to kind of address that language barrier.
Me, it was when I was in middle school. I read a book called In Death, Be Not Proud. I've forgotten the title of the book now, but it was a memoir from this boy who has brain tumors, and he was able to pursue high school while still being ill. He eventually died, which is really sad, and it just made me realize that like humans are very vulnerable. We are limited by our biology, pretty much, whether like caused by cancer or caused by disease or just by aging. Eventually we'll die. I think that medical science or any research science help us push these limits to either prolong our life or just live better. So that's why I was interested in medicine and research.
Great. So I think a number of our participants today are either in high school or in college. So can you share a little bit about how you guys have prepared for a career in medicine while throughout college?
Yeah, well, I think that, most of you are already doing it by attending this panel, right? Like seeking out resources like this is one of the things I would definitely recommend to ensure that you're on the right track when, as like a pre-med student, and whether in like high school or college. But I think like at its core, like you should really focus on like, the classes that you're taking. So make sure, like for me, like the interest started when, in high school, when I was like taking biology, like that was one of my favorite classes, right? And like, as, a future physician, I mean, most of your classes are going to revolve around that subject, obviously. So you have to, try to develop a keen interest in these subject matters that like that will be relevant, in the future as a physician. And also like getting involved in extracurricular activities. Like in college, there are a few organizations that I can think of off the top of my head, like American Medical Student Association, otherwise known as AMSA. There's also the Charles Drew Medical Society. There are a lot of organizations that provide you with resources necessary to be successful in getting into medical school and beyond. And also like beyond from there, like there's also like upperclassmen that you can talk to, as well as your pre-medical advisors, all of which are resources that I took full advantage of. So make sure you do as well.
So if you guys don't have any other comments on that, we can also move on to the next question. So does being a pre-medical student choices of what to major in? For instance, what were some of the majors that you guys pursued?
Funny enough, I am a double major, so I'm history as well as science. It's weird, and everybody tells me that all the time. But I went like in high school, growing up, I've always loved history, always been interested in it. And everyone was telling me, go to college, do something you love. I love science. I love, I want to pursue medicine, but I also have a really strong interest in history. So if you think you can put in the work, then you can try that.
I majored in neuroscience, which is like the typical science, I feel like. But I think I don't think it will limit you in terms of like what you want to do in college. Like, to be honest, I felt like I should have taken more humanity class, because on my last semester of my senior year, I took an English class and I took a philosophy class. And I really wished I took more English class and actually become an English major. So I feel like if you're interested in doing pre-health when you're in college, definitely don't limit yourself just to science classes, because even though we all love science, eventually you need to exercise the other part of your brain and do something else that's also interesting.
Yeah, I definitely also agree with what the other panelists said. So like I majored in biomedical engineering, which fortunately enough, like a lot of the requirements like sort of overlapped with like the pre-med curriculum. But because of that, I actually felt like I had the flexibility to take like other classes that I was interested in. And for that reason, like I actually like picked up a minor in computer science, because like even though like before college, like I didn't really have any background in computer science whatsoever, I was like, this is really interesting. Like this is like the hot topic. This is like the hot engineering trend of the future. Like I want to learn a little bit more about it. So I pursued a minor and I was able to take all the classes. So I would definitely say that like while the pre-med curriculum can seem daunting, like and somewhat limiting, it's not impossible to also fit in other classes like like in the humanities and whatnot, especially like provided if you organize if you like organize in advance. I think that's an important aspect to keep in mind, especially when you enter college. Like try to, I guess, like plan out your schedule well in advance, like for all 4 years, like as a first year, especially like if you're interested in taking different types of classes and not limiting it to the pre-medical curriculum. I think that if you have that organizational mindset, then you can accomplish those feats and like take, I guess like pursue those interests for sure.
Yeah, that's great. I think that just to add a comment to that, I think that during my interview, one of my interviewers actually told me that it's important to keep in mind that in medicine, you're actually connecting with other humans, right? And so when you're pursuing things like history or English or taking other classes outside of the pre-medical curriculum, you're actually building these knowledge and skills and interests that can allow you to build that human connection to be a better physician. And so thank you guys for sharing that insight. So I think Brandon did mention that there were organizations like AMSA. So I was just wondering what other extracurriculars that maybe you guys might have done, either medical related or not medical related, that might have helped you in your journey.
I know my school had a pre-health, it was a pre-health club, but they used to hold a lot of workshops, and they would have speakers come in. And that really, really solidified. And that was in the beginning of me starting at school. So that really solidified me wanting to go into pre-med, and having other people around me that had similar goals definitely helped. As for like other extracurriculars that are in school, so I know Alpha Epsilon Delta is a fraternity. Well, it's a society, but it's a fraternity for medical. So some schools do have that as well.
Yeah, I could speak a little bit more to like my extracurricular activities as well. So like in addition to like the organizations I mentioned, like AMSA and Charles True, I wasn't really actively involved with them, but I popped in from time to time, and like I was like on the listserv and like had access to all the resources. But one of the things that I really dedicate a lot of time to was doing research, and that's actually what inspired me to decided to like pursue an MD PhD. So I worked in like a lab up at the medical center, and there I just I spent like most of my college career just pretty much doing like research. And like that's when like I decided like I just felt that like medicine was like just like the path was like fairly linear. Like to become like an accomplished physician, like there are, depending on what specialty you do, obviously, like there are like certain procedures and whatnot that you like have to do without like room for error, right? Because like a patient's life is at stake. Like there's no room for creativity there. But whereas with research, it does, like it's like the complete opposite I found, right? Like creativity and innovation is encouraged, right? Those are the people who often make like the breakthrough scientific discoveries. So me, like being an engineer, like I've sort of learned to develop this like creative mindset. And like while I was like initially focused on pursuing a career in medicine, I just felt that I would be way too constrained, especially like given my like training as like a biomedical engineer. So that's why I decided to do research, and that's where I learned how to like combine that extracurricular activity with like my future career aspirations of like becoming a physician scientist.
Yeah, I think like I agree with what Brenda's saying. I did research also very early on when I was in high school. So I guess for like high school students who want to have like research experience, I would definitely just look out for any volunteer like opportunities over the summer. I think the earlier you get exposed to research, I guess the more used to it you will become, and you kind of get a feel of like what research is about, in case you don't want to do research in the future. And for college students, there are a lot of like summer research programs you can look for. And I see someone in the comments saying that about high school internship for biomedical engineer. I don't really know any like high school internship, but I feel like you can always find someone to shadow. I think shadowing someone is like very important. Like I shadowed a few doctors, and just like send out a bunch, just do Google like biomedical engineers, and then send out a bunch of email to a bunch of engineers and ask them if you can come in one day to see what their job is like. And that could change your perspective of what biomedical engineers do. Or you don't like their job, like, oh, this is not for me. So I think like is also another thing I did extracurricular. I think I really cherished, and I really hope everyone will have a chance to do to shadow someone.
Great. So you guys kind of talked a little bit about like potential research opportunities and reaching out. So that's like a typical summer activity for someone who might be interested in doing an MD PhD. So what other summer activities have you guys done or recommend for, especially for people who might be interested in the medical field or even a medical and research field? If there's anything additional to what you have mentioned.
I know a lot of hospitals. I recently just applied for a volunteer program at hospitals. A lot of hospitals offer it. And that just gives you a lot of opportunity to spend time around patients, other doctors, and people in the field that you want to join. So I think definitely check out the hospitals around you and see if they have any volunteer potential, like volunteer opportunities.
Yeah. Most of my summer activities are actually comprised of like research. So not like entirely medical, but like for those aspiring MD PhDs out there, hopefully this could be of some use. But yeah, so for one of my summers, I did this program called IGEM, which stands for International Genetically Engineered Machine Competition. It's like a competition, but it's like a worldwide competition where like schools like across the country and also like across the world basically form teams and like do research as a team, like basically brainstorm, come up with ideas, and work on a project to eventually present it at a giant jamboree in the fall. And so like during the summer, like you and the team size can vary, but like my team was like 8 people, so me and like 7 other people got together, we came up with ideas, and then we eventually picked one and started working on it as a team, like in the lab. It was really cool. I've never really done like research like that with like such a large group, like like collaboratively. This was like summer after my freshman year, so it was like a really interesting experience. And like most schools are starting to incorporate the program. Like IGEM started maybe like a decade ago, so it's like still growing, but it's like starting to expand to many different types of schools. So maybe like at the college level, definitely look out for that program if you're interested in doing research as a team and it sounds right for you. I like the experience a lot.
So thank you for sharing that. So I thought that maybe we would talk a little. So how do we apply to medical school? How do we know that we're ready to apply? So as with the application, typically there is the MCAT exam and the CASPER exam. So I'm not too sure if you guys have taken it yet, or some of you might have. So I was just wondering, how did you guys plan for taking these exams? When did you take them? And how are you preparing for those?
Currently, I am preparing to take the MCAT. There's just like so much. The MCAT is really for people, so I didn't want to study MCAT while I was in school. So I didn't study for MCAT while I was in school. And now after I graduated, I was able to prepare for it like right now while I'm working, which is a little bit better. But should I talk about like what prep books I use, or?
Just how have you been planning out your studying?
Oh, like I don't know. I don't really have a plan. I think the crucial thing is, this is my first time taking MCAS also, but I think the crucial thing is that just know your study style. Like if you are a person who don't use flashcard, don't try to use flashcard, even though so many people suggest you to use flashcard. So I think one of the important things you learn in college is like your own learning style, which is important when you prepare for like more exams in the future.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of those points a lot. So I'm actually also on the same boat. I'm like preparing to take it, hopefully like by the end of this summer. But yeah, I would say like get a sense for your study style. Like exactly like Min said, like if you're not used to using flashcards, like don't use them. And like I would say like preparing for it starts as soon as like even as early as like you enter college, right? Because like the exam like it's like focuses on like pretty much most of the classes you've taken starting from like the beginning of your first year to like whenever you end up taking it, right? So that's like bio, like first semester physics, like just like as you're taking those classes, just keep that in the back of your mind that you don't want to like easily forget this material because you're going to have to eventually revisit it when you're taking the exam. So yeah, and I guess like just to give some pointers maybe as like when to take it. So typically like you definitely want to have taken it before you plan on applying, and like applications for med school open up like every cycle, like usually open up like around late May, early June, I want to say. So I know a lot of people that like take it in the spring, like maybe like at the end of March, early April. So they usually use like the winter break to study for it, like the college winter break to study for it. There are even better, like if you can manage it, if you're like thinking way ahead, and you can also like take it at the end of the summer. Like for example, like if you're like a sophomore in college and you're about to end your like spring semester, then you can like spend the 3 months of summer studying like and and that way you wouldn't have to worry about it during your junior year, and then you can apply for med school like you're at the end of your junior year, like assuming you don't want to take a gap year or anything. So yeah.
Cool. So I guess since we are nearing our last 10 minutes, we should questions that our participants have mentioned. So we might have answered a couple of them, but I guess there was a question on MD PhD programs, and I know Min and Brandon, you guys mentioned interest in maybe going towards it. So if you guys can talk a little bit about what you know about the programs and how difficult it might be to pursue one.
Yeah. I can share like oh sure, sorry.
Because you actually applied and got accepted to one.
I
think we can start and then we can add on to what you said.
Okay, so MD PhD programs are typically, you get both degrees, right? And it's on a longer timeline. So you start out with 2 years preclinical studies. So that's like first half of your MD, plus maybe 5 to 7 years, 3 to 5 years of research, depending on when you finish that research. And then you go back to the MD side and finish that, the last 2 clinical rotations. So essentially it is about, I want to say 7 to 9 years, and you end up having both a research degree as well as a medical degree. So you can go forward and pursue residencies to either practice medicine or teach or run your own lab and things like that. I don't know if you guys want to add on.
The acceptance for MD PhD might be even lower compared to MDs, because like the class size for MD PhDs are like 30 to 40 people per year. Yeah. And I think also another thing that I guess if you want both degree, you also don't have to go for a dual program. You can do a PhD first, and then if you're interested in medicine, then do an MD, or like vice versa.
Yeah, like one just quick important point I wanted to bring up about MD PhD programs. Like the reason why it's so competitive is because like most are actually like fully paid for. So they will pay for your MD and PhD. Like if you get it, like that will be covered. Like even like in some cases, like your living expenses and like, yeah, like everything, like your tuition expenses are covered. So like that's why like their class size is so small, and that's why it's a lot more competitive. But it's definitely like, challenging, but like rewarding. So if medicine and research is for you, then I would say like go for it. Well, of course there are like other things to consider, but yeah, it's like a great opportunity.
So I guess maybe to answer Lauren's question, do you guys have specific specialties in medicine that you might be interested in going into?
I am considering being an obstetrician potentially. So hopefully, yeah, I would like to be an OB/GYN.
I would like to focus on oncology, so I want to be an oncologist. Probably, maybe like either focusing on like pancreatic cancer or breast cancer. I haven't decided if I want to do like surgery or like be a medical oncologist yet, or like radiation oncologist. But yeah, I guess I still have a few more years to think about that. So yeah, but still deciding between those three main options.
I am interested in going to neurosurgery, but I'm also really open to any other specialties as I move on with my career plan, I guess.
I think it is definitely a little bit early to actually decide on a specialty, even though people like to ask about it early on. You don't really find out until when you're really doing clinical rotations, when you see like you're actually in the field working with patients and working alongside physicians in the field. Then you're able to kind of get hands-on experience and see what works and what doesn't work. And so I think I've been kind of juggling maybe doing general surgery, maybe doing pediatric surgery. We will see. But still, I have a ton of time to figure it out, almost 9 years. So I think I'm good. So what other questions did we have in the chat? Maybe examples of some biomedical research that we've done in the past? Or maybe just research in general, that works too.
Yeah, I can speak to like specifically biomedical research. So like biomedical research like spans across like a lot of things, I would say. So like that includes like there's like drug and gene delivery, right? Like you can like engineer like microspheres and like these like nanoparticles to like kind of deliver drugs to specific sites in the body. There's also like research going on bioinstrumentation, which is basically like developing like these biomedical devices like pacemakers, like ventilators, for example, right? Like that's especially like in the midst of these crazy times, like it's something super important. Let's see. Yeah, even like things that like like tissue engineering, right? Like developing grafts for like burn victims. There are plenty of things like to do in biomedical research, and those are like big three that I can think of, and some of which like I've been involved in. So
yeah, I think for me, I also did some like pharmacology research. Also did research on bariatric surgeries on the mice, and right now I'm doing like cancer research. So I think there is like a different variety of biomedical research, but I think it's really important to keep an open mind and like try out different type of research. And for key skills needed, I think it's very important you pay attention in your college classes because all these things comes back when you're doing research. Like all these details that you miss, you think you can get away with, no, they will come back. So always pay attention in class.
That's good. So I guess I kind of went on a limb and I did microgravity research at NASA. And so that was a bit of life sciences as well. So the skills required for that was more of like actually 3D printing things, as well as cell culture, microscopy, yeah, all that kind of stuff. Back at Columbia, I did a bit of biomaterials research, so more working with the chemistry of things. But of course, research doesn't have to be biomedical in nature. You can also do other research like clinical research, so actually working with patients. You don't have to be stuck, actually get out onto the hospital floor and like work with patients there as well. And that is viable and respectable research as well. Great. So we are at 5:30. Don't know if you guys have any final comments or anything, any final questions.
Yeah, just like one final comment, I guess. I know like the time was pretty short and like maybe we didn't like get to address all the questions, like all the questions we had planned, but I'm definitely open to, you know, if anybody has like any lingering questions or just want or like need some advice, like I have like my like LinkedIn in my profile, so like feel free to like connect with me, shoot me a message. Like I'm a big advocate of like networking because I know like when I was a high schooler, like I sought out so many resources like this, like just partly because like there was like no one in my family, like nuclear like extended family who had any medical experience whatsoever. So like I felt like I was kind of going about this on my own. And like without the help from like so many other people that I networked with, I would definitely not be where I am today. So feel free to shoot me a message for anything, like even if it's like a stupid, there are no stupid questions. So like just for anything, like I'd be happy to answer and I'd be happy to chat. So yeah.
I guess for my last comment is that for people who want to enter medicine in the future, just know that the road is very long and it's very stressful and you will break down many times. But just remember that you have to push through it and all your effort will be paid off. Just remember that doctor is a very special job. People at their most vulnerable like situation, they're willing to like put their life on stake because like for you, you know. So you have to put in a hard work to be respectful for the patient that you will treat in the future. So just push through and you guys will get there.
I just want to say that I know it's hard, and I know some of you are in high school, or maybe some of you are in college, but don't let anything get in your way. If you really want to do it, you can. Research, like look up resources. So there's so many things online that can just ease your anxiety of maybe just feeling like you can't do it. That definitely helped me. So, you know, just even if it takes you however long it takes you, you can get there, and if you trust yourself and you do what you have to do, you will. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Forget to have fun.
Well, thank you so much to our
Right.
panelists and thank you to our participants. And yeah, let us know if you have any follow-up questions. And thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.